I watched you die, so tell me why staying here.
She did not react when the doors opened. That was the first thing he noticed. No tightening of posture, no shift of weight, no glance toward the sound that echoed across the command chamber. The woman standing at the center of the room remained perfectly still, hands clasped behind her back, gaze fixed on the vast projection of star maps hovering before her. Most people reacted to doors opening behind them, especially doors reinforced with tri-layer alloy and guarded by armed sentinels. But she did not. Ethan Hale stopped just inside the threshold, uncertain whether he was meant to announce himself or simply exist until acknowledged. He had been briefed, of course. He had memorized her titles, her rank, her reputation. Commander, strategist, the woman who had broken 3 rebellions without ever leaving orbit. But the briefing had not prepared him for the silence, not the absence of sound. The chamber hummed softly with power, data streams whispering through the air, but the deliberate kind of silence that felt controlled, maintained, like something fragile she refused to disturb. "Commander," one of the escorts said, voice low, deferential. "The human specialist has arrived." Still no movement. Ethan swallowed. He had been on battlefields before. He had stood beside men waiting to die. This felt different. Worse somehow, like standing in the presence of something that had already survived its own ending. Then she spoke. "Leave us." 2 words, calm, precise, spoken without turning around. The escorts hesitated for a fraction of a second, just long enough for Ethan to notice, before stepping back and exiting. The doors sealed behind them with a muted finality that made his chest tighten. Alone. She exhaled. It was barely audible, but it carried weight, as if she had been holding her breath for much longer than the moment required. Slowly, she turned. Ethan had expected severity. He had expected the sharpness of command etched into every line of her face. What he had not expected was restraint, a kind of stillness that looked practiced, not natural. Her eyes found him immediately, and in that instant something behind them broke. Not visibly, not dramatically, but the way a glass fractures without shattering, lines forming beneath the surface, unseen until the light catches them just right. Ethan felt it before he understood it, a pressure in his chest, a sudden, irrational certainty that whatever this woman was seeing when she looked at him, it was not simply a stranger. She stared. He did not move, did not speak. Years of instinct told him this was not the moment to fill the silence. Her lips parted, then closed again. Finally, she said his name, Ethan Hale. The way she said it was wrong, not mispronounced, not accented. Wrong in the sense that it carried familiarity it had no right to possess, like a name spoken at the end of a sentence that should never have existed. "Yes," he answered after a moment. "That's me." She held his gaze as if testing the shape of him against something only she could see. "You are alive," she said. The words were quiet, flat, almost clinical. "Yes," he said again, uncertainty creeping into his voice. "As far as I'm aware." Something flickered across her expression then, too fast to name. Relief, maybe, or pain, or both braided together so tightly they were indistinguishable. She looked away first. "I reviewed your file," she said, returning her attention to the star map. "Your service record, your psychological evaluations, your history." He shifted his weight, suddenly aware of how small he felt in the vast chamber. "I was told this was a consultation, not an interrogation." "It is neither," she replied. "It is confirmation." "Of what?" She did not answer immediately. Instead, her hand moved across the holographic display, zooming in on a sector of space Ethan recognized all too well. The coordinates burned themselves into his memory, a system he had never returned to, a battle officially classified as contained, resolved, acceptable losses. She stopped the projection at a single point. "There," she said, "that is where you died." Ethan stared at the glowing marker. "I'm pretty sure I didn't." She turned again, slowly this time. Her eyes were steady now, guarded. "I watched it happen," she said. "Your transport was struck, its core destabilized. There were no survivors." A chill crept up his spine. "Commander, with respect, you're mistaken." "I am not." Her voice hardened, not with anger but with certainty sharpened by memory. "You were on the ground," she continued. "You had already completed your evacuation task. You stayed behind to reroute power manually. You bought them 93 seconds. Ethan's breath caught. No one had ever mentioned that part. "How do you know that?" he asked quietly. Her jaw tightened. For the first time since he had entered the room, her composure showed strain. "Because I ordered the retreat," she said, "and because I watched the explosion." Silence stretched between them again, thick now, heavy with things unsaid. Ethan finally spoke, voice low. "Commander, I've never been to that system." Her gaze snapped back to him, the fracture deepened. "That is impossible," she said. "It's not," he replied. "I think you saw someone else." She studied him then, not as an officer, not as a commander, but as if she were searching for a ghost that refused to stay buried. Slowly, she said, "You have the same face." Ethan felt something cold settle in his stomach. "The same voice," she continued. "The same posture, the same infuriating habit of standing like you expect the universe to explain itself to you." That last line landed harder than the rest, because it was uncomfortably accurate. She took a step toward him, then another, each movement measured, controlled, as if she were approaching something volatile. "If you are not the man I watched die," she said softly, "then the universe has made a mistake." They stood only a few feet apart now. Ethan met her gaze, heart pounding. "Or," he said, "you're being given a second chance." For a long moment she said nothing. Then, very quietly, as if afraid the words themselves might shatter what little balance she had left, she whispered, "I do not believe in second chances." But the way her eyes lingered on him said something else entirely. And for the first time since he had entered the chamber, Ethan understood something with terrifying clarity. Whatever she had lost in that other life, she was not prepared to lose it again. She did not ask him to sit. That, too, felt intentional. Ethan remained standing where he was, aware of the distance between them not in meters but in posture. She stayed upright, shoulders squared, chin lifted, every inch the commander she was known to be. Yet something in her gaze had shifted. It no longer assessed him as a variable in a system. It measured him against a memory. "You will answer my questions," she said, "not as a soldier, not as a representative of your species, as yourself." He gave a short, humorless exhale. "I don't think I know how to be anything else." Her eyes narrowed slightly, as if that answer had brushed against something raw. "Name the last assignment you completed before arriving here," she said. "Civilian extraction on Damaris Station," he replied without hesitation. "Communications grid failure, evac corridor collapse, no hostile contact." Her fingers twitched at her side, and before that, logistics support, mostly boring, paperwork in space. She turned away from him again, pacing slowly toward the edge of the chamber where the transparent wall revealed a field of stars. Her reflection followed her in the glass, tall, elegant, composed. "Untouched by time. You avoid specifics," she said. "You always did." Ethan frowned. "We've established you're confusing me with someone else." She stopped. "No," she said. "I am confirming you are not him." She faced him once more. "Tell me about your hands." He blinked. "My hands." Yes, her gaze dropped briefly, clinically. "Any injuries, old fractures, scarring?" He hesitated, then held them out slightly. "Burn scar on the left palm. Reactor feedback surge 5 years ago. Hairline fracture in the right wrist when I was younger. Gravity accident." Her eyes locked onto his left hand. Slowly she approached again. "May I?" she asked. The question was formal, controlled. But it carried something beneath it, something careful. He nodded. She took his hand in hers. Her skin was warm. That surprised him more than it should have. Alien physiology briefings often emphasized difference, thermal variance, bioelectric fields, adaptive membranes. None of that prepared him for how human the contact felt. Warm palm, long fingers, a grip that was firm but not tight. Her thumb brushed over the burn scar. She inhaled sharply. He burned his hand saving a power conduit, she said. Same place, same shape. Ethan's throat went dry. That's not uncommon. No, she replied quietly, but what he said afterward was. Her thumb stilled. What did he say? Ethan asked. She released his hand as if realizing she had overstepped. That it was worth it, she said, because the lights came back on. Silence settled between them again. Ethan flexed his fingers, trying to ground himself. Commander, I don't know who you lost, but you're projecting him onto me. She did not deny it. Instead, she walked past him, close enough that he caught the faint scent of metal and something softer beneath it, ozone mixed with something floral, restrained. I am not projecting, she said. I am comparing. To what end? He asked. She stopped behind him. So I know whether this universe is mocking me, she said, or testing me. A chill ran through him. He turned slowly to face her again. What happened to him? For a moment he thought she would refuse to answer. Then she surprised him. He disobeyed an order, she said. Mine. Her voice did not waver, but something in her eyes darkened. I told him to retreat. He stayed behind. Why? Ethan asked. Because, she said, there were still civilians trapped. Ethan nodded slowly. That sounds like something I'd do. Her gaze snapped up. They held eye contact, something charged passing between them, sharp and unspoken. You see, she said softly, this is the problem. She stepped back, creating space again, reasserting control. You will remain on this station, she continued. You will not leave orbit. You will not request reassignment. That wasn't in my orders, Ethan said carefully. It is now. He studied her face, the discipline, the restraint, the grief buried so deeply it had fossilized. And if I refuse, he asked. She met his gaze, unblinking. Then, she said, I will finally know that you are not him. The words landed heavier than a threat. Ethan considered that for a long moment. Then he nodded. All right. Her expression flickered just barely. You agree? She asked. I do, he said. Not because of him, because of you. That made her pause. Why? She asked. Ethan chose his words carefully. Because whatever you're carrying, it doesn't look like something you should carry alone. For the first time, her composure cracked. Just a fraction. Enough. She turned away before he could see more. You are dismissed, she said. Ethan moved toward the door, then stopped. Commander, he said. She did not turn. If I remind you of him, he continued, then maybe there's a reason. Her voice came back softer this time, almost weary. Be careful, Ethan Hale, she said. That reasoning is what got him killed. The doors opened. As Ethan stepped out, he felt it again, that unmistakable sense that something irreversible had begun. Behind him, alone in the command chamber, the woman finally allowed herself to close her eyes. And for the first time in years, she whispered a name she had sworn never to speak again. Not his, but close enough to hurt. Sleep did not come easily that night. Ethan lay awake in the narrow quarters assigned to him, staring at the dim strip of light embedded in the ceiling. The station hummed around him, steady, artificial, indifferent. He had slept in worse places, louder places, places where death had felt closer than walls. This was different. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw hers, not the commander, not the uniform. But the moment just before she turned away, the fracture beneath the surface. The restraint stretched thin enough to cut. He rolled onto his side, exhaling slowly. Whatever game this was, memory, mistake, or madness, he was already inside it. The summons came less than 6 hours later. No escort this time. Just a quiet alert on his wrist console and a set of coordinates deeper within the station, far from command decks and observation halls. He followed them. The corridor ended at a door he did not recognize, unmarked, unadorned. When it opened, the space beyond was smaller than he expected, circular, dimly lit. The walls lined with sealed panels and suspended data cores, their surfaces etched with faint glyphs that pulsed like slow heartbeats. She stood at the center. No armor, no insignia, just a dark fitted uniform and her hair pulled back loosely, strands escaping at her temples. She looked less distant like this, not weaker, just closer to something real. You came, she said. You ordered me not to leave orbit, he replied. I assumed that included saying no. A corner of her mouth almost lifted. This room is not part of the official station registry, she said. What is said here will not be recorded. That's reassuring, Ethan said. Or alarming, I'm not sure yet. She gestured toward a low platform opposite her. Sit. He did, she did not. Tell me, she said, about your childhood. He blinked. That's not where I thought this was going. Answer, she said, but without force. He leaned back slightly, considering. Nothing remarkable, small coastal city. Father worked maintenance. Mother taught mathematics. No grand trauma. No tragic destiny. Her gaze sharpened. You lie. He frowned. I didn't think it was that obvious. You omitted, she corrected. You did not lie. She moved closer, circling him slowly. Not predatory, studying. The man I lost did the same, she said. He believed if he reduced himself enough, the universe would overlook him. Ethan followed her with his eyes. Did it? No, she said quietly. It noticed him anyway. She stopped in front of him. What was the first thing you remember wanting? She asked. He hesitated, not because he lacked an answer, but because the one that surfaced felt too personal for a room like this. Silence, he said finally. I wanted things to stop asking me who I was supposed to be. Her breath caught just slightly. That is not a common desire, she said. Neither is commanding an empire, he replied. Something passed between them then, recognition maybe. Or the beginnings of it, she straightened, reasserting distance. There is a phenomenon, she said, documented only in classified imperial archives. Rare, unstable. Sounds promising, Ethan muttered. It involves convergence, she continued. Points where probability collapses inward, where lives that should never align begin to echo. You're saying I'm an echo, he said. I am saying, she replied, that you are statistically impossible. He let out a slow breath. That's not the most comforting thing I've been called. Her eyes softened, not much, but enough. You are not a replacement, she said. I will not allow myself that delusion. Good, Ethan said, because I wouldn't survive the comparison. That earned him a longer look. You are different, she admitted. You question less, you carry less anger. Maybe I just hide it better. Perhaps, she said, or perhaps this universe shaped you differently. She turned away, moving to one of the suspended data cores. With a gesture, she activated it. The air shimmered, and an image formed between them. A battlefield, smoke, fire. Ruined structures half buried in ice. Ethan felt his chest tighten. I've never seen this place, he said. I know, she replied. The image shifted. A human man stood near the center, back turned, posture familiar in a way that made Ethan's skin prickle. Broad shoulders, same height, same stance. He watched as the man turned slightly, profile visible now. Ethan stared. The resemblance was undeniable, not identical, but close enough to unsettle. He volunteered, she said. Always. As if he believed sacrifice was a form of honesty. The image froze on the man's face. He trusted me, she continued, and I failed him. Ethan looked away first. That's not on you, he said quietly. Her voice hardened. I gave the order, and he chose to disobey it, Ethan replied. That's agency, not failure. She faced him again. You speak as if you know him. No, Ethan said. I speak as someone who understands that kind of choice. They stood in silence, the frozen image between them like a wound held open. Finally, she dismissed the projection. You should leave, she said. This conversation has gone further than intended. Ethan nodded, rising. At the door he paused. You still haven't told me your name, he said. She hesitated. Names mattered in every culture. He knew that, especially among hers. After a moment she said, in your language, it would translate loosely to Velira. He repeated it softly. Velira. Something in her expression shifted, subtle but unmistakable. No one had said it like that in a very long time. Good night, Ethan Hale, she said. As he left, Velira remained where she was, staring at the empty space where the image had been. 2 lives, 2 universes, and a question she could no longer avoid. What if this time the echo did not end in loss? The inquiry was announced without ceremony. A single line of text appeared on Valera's private console as she stood at the observation window, watching the slow drift of a binary star system tear light into ribbons. Imperial Oversight has requested review. Subject, Human Specialist Ethan Hale. Reason, Probability Irregularity. Her fingers stilled against the glass. So it had begun. She had known it would. The Empire tolerated many things, experiments, compromises, even failure. But it did not tolerate anomalies it could not classify. A human who existed where another had died was not a coincidence. It was a threat to order, to narrative, to control. Valera closed the message and straightened. By the time Ethan was summoned again, the station already felt different, not louder, not tenser. Watched. He sensed it the moment he stepped into the corridor outside the command deck. Subtle shifts in patrol patterns, glances that lingered half a second too long, systems that took just a breath longer to authorize his access. Someone somewhere had started asking questions. The doors opened. This time Valera was not alone. 3 holographic figures hovered near the far wall, their forms rendered in sharp imperial blue. Overseers, strategists, bureaucrats whose power did not come from fleets or weapons, but from the authority to decide which truths were allowed to exist. Ethan stopped short. Valera did not look at him. Human Specialist Ethan Hale, one of the figures said, voice smooth and utterly disinterested. You have been flagged for review. Ethan glanced at Valera, still nothing. On what grounds? He asked. Statistical inconsistency, another replied. Your presence correlates with a terminated probability line. That's a complicated way of saying you think I shouldn't be here, Ethan said. The overseer's eyes narrowed. Correct. But finally Valera spoke. He is under my jurisdiction. The statement was calm, even, but it carried weight. Command weight. The holograms turned toward her. Your jurisdiction does not supersede imperial continuity, one said. You are too close to this matter. That at last made her turn. Her gaze was cold now, focused. The fracture sealed behind layers of command. Define too close, she said. Your history with the terminated subject is documented, the overseer replied. Emotional compromise has been noted. Ethan felt a tightening in his chest. Valera stepped forward. The terminated subject is not this man, she said. And your assumption of compromise is based on a correlation you do not yet understand. Silence, then, which is why we are here. A new projection appeared between them, branching lines of light, splitting and collapsing in on themselves. Parallel convergence, the overseer said. 2 near-identical individuals occupying divergent probability paths. One ends. One continues. The convergence point is you, Commander. Ethan looked between them. So what happens now? The answer did not come from Valera. The anomaly is resolved, the overseer said simply. Ethan felt the room tilt. Resolved how? By removal. Valera's hand moved just slightly, not toward a weapon, toward her console. No, she said. The word was quiet, final, the holograms flickered. This is not a request, one replied. He is not a variable, Valera said. He is a person. A human, the overseer corrected. Expendable. Ethan opened his mouth. Enough, Valera snapped. The room went still. For the first time since the inquiry began, her control slipped enough for something sharp and dangerous to surface. He is under my command, she said. And until you can prove that his existence destabilizes this reality more than your interference already has, you will not touch him. The overseers regarded her in silence. Then, you are risking censure. I am aware. Demotion. I accept the consequences. Exile. Her jaw tightened. Then she said, if necessary. That finally made Ethan turn fully toward her. Valera, he said quietly. She did not look at him. The holograms dimmed. This review is suspended, the overseer said. Temporarily. But understand this, Commander, echoes do not remain harmless. They replace. The figures vanished. The room felt suddenly too large. Ethan broke the silence first. "You didn't have to do that." "Yes," Valera said, "I did." She turned to face him, and for the first time the commander was gone. Only the woman remained. "They will come back," she said, "with stronger arguments, fewer choices." "So what happens to me?" Ethan asked. She studied him, really studied him, as if committing him to memory. "You will disappear," she said. He frowned. "I'm not very good at that." "You will learn," she replied. "I will reassign you, off record, somewhere beyond their immediate reach." "And you?" he asked. She hesitated. "That is complicated." He stepped closer. "Because of me." "Yes," she admitted, "and because of him." The silence between them felt different now. No longer cautious, no longer theoretical. "You once told me you don't believe in second chances," Ethan said. Her eyes met his. "I still don't," she replied, then softer, "but I am beginning to believe in defiance." Outside the viewport, the stars continued their indifferent drift. Inside, something irrevocable had shifted. The Empire had noticed, and Valera had chosen. The investigation did not begin loudly. There were no alarms, no sudden lockdowns, no armed units storming the station. That would have been inefficient, crude. The Empire did not survive by announcing its intentions. Instead, subtle changes appeared. Ethan noticed it first in the silence between messages. Requests he sent went unanswered longer than usual. System permissions he had been granted without question now required secondary authorization. Conversations paused when he entered rooms. Not fear, not hostility, observation. By the third day he was certain of it. They were watching him. The summons came while he was recalibrating a sensor array, busy work but purposeful enough to keep his mind occupied. His wrist console pulsed once, then displayed a designation he hadn't seen before. Imperial Oversight. No coordinates, just a time. He did not hesitate. When Ethan entered the chamber, Valera was already there. She stood near the center, hands clasped behind her back once more, posture immaculate. Armor this time. Full command regalia. The distance she had stripped away in private was firmly restored. But when her eyes met his, he saw it. Tension. Not fear. Anticipation. Specialist Hale, one of the figures seated along the elevated arc, said. Their features were partially obscured by holographic veils, standard protocol for oversight councils. "You have been flagged as a convergence anomaly." Ethan resisted the urge to glance at Valera. "I don't know what that means," he said. "That is expected," the figure replied. "You are not equipped to." Another voice joined in, cooler, sharper. "You are not meant to be here." That one cut deeper. Ethan felt it settle in his chest, but he kept his expression neutral. "I was assigned." "Yes," the voice said, "by Commander Valera." The room shifted subtly then, not physically but in alignment. Attention redirected, pressure recalibrated. Valera spoke before Ethan could. "The assignment was lawful," she said evenly, "approved through appropriate channels." "And yet," the first voice replied, "his presence coincides with irregular memory resonance in your neural scans." Silence. Ethan turned slowly toward her. "Memory scans?" he asked quietly. Her jaw tightened. "They were mandatory," she said, "after the incident." "What incident?" Ethan asked. She did not answer him. The council did. "You have exhibited physiological responses consistent with post-traumatic recall," the sharp voice said. "Responses triggered exclusively by proximity to this human." Ethan felt something cold spread through his stomach. "So," he said carefully, "you think I'm dangerous?" "No," the voice replied. "We think you are disruptive." That was worse. "Commander Valera," another figure said, "state your position." All eyes turned to her. Ethan watched her carefully then, not as a soldier, not as an observer, but as someone standing very close to the gravity of her decision. She took a breath. Measured, controlled. "He is not the man you think he is," she said, "nor is he a threat to the Empire." "And yet," the sharp voice countered, "you have altered standard protocol, restricted data access, canceled rotation requests, delayed a scheduled campaign briefing." Ethan looked at her sharply now. "You did that?" he asked under his breath. She did not look at him. "Yes," she said to the council, "I did." The chamber hummed with low-frequency communication as the figures exchanged data at speeds Ethan couldn't perceive. Then the first voice spoke again. "There is precedent," it said, "for termination." The word landed heavy. Ethan did not move. Valera did, just a step forward, subtle, defiant. "If you remove him," she said, "you confirm that convergence exists. And if we allow him to remain," the sharp voice replied, "we risk destabilizing a commander who holds strategic control over 3 sectors." That one was aimed directly at her. Ethan finally spoke. "If this is about me," he said, "then I'll leave." Valera's head turned sharply. "No," she said. The word came out harder than intended. She corrected herself, slowed her breathing. "You will not," she said again, calmer, "because you are not the variable here." The council paused. "That is an interesting claim," the first voice said. Valera lifted her chin. "I am." The chamber went very still. Ethan stared at her, heart pounding. "You don't have to do this," he said quietly. She looked at him then, really looked at him. "I do," she replied, "because this time I recognize the moment." She turned back to the council. "If you wish to question my command," she said, "do so openly. Do not disguise it as concern over a human who has done nothing wrong. And if your judgment is compromised," the sharp voice asked. Valera did not hesitate. "Then I will accept the consequences," she said. "But I will not allow you to erase him for the sake of your comfort." Silence stretched, then. "A provisional ruling," the first voice said. "The human remains under observation. You, Commander, will submit to continued evaluation." Ethan exhaled slowly. The chamber lights dimmed slightly, a signal of closure. As the council withdrew, Ethan turned to her. "You just put a target on yourself," he said. She met his gaze, something fierce and honest beneath the discipline. "I have lived with worse," she replied. They stood there for a moment, alone again. "This is no longer just about the past," Ethan said. "No," she agreed. "It's about whether I let it define the future." She stepped closer, lowering her voice. "They will try to separate us," she said, gradually, quietly. Ethan nodded. "Then we should be prepared." Her eyes searched his face. "For what?" she asked. "For the possibility," he said, "that this echo didn't happen by accident." Something in her expression shifted, fear and hope colliding. "Careful," she whispered. "That thought is dangerous." He held her gaze. "So is pretending it doesn't matter." For the first time, Valera did not look away. And in that moment, both of them understood the same truth. The Empire had noticed them. And once it did, there was no going back. The order came from above, not from Valera. Ethan was in the observation ring when the alert pulsed across the station, short, sharp, unmistakably official. Red priority, imperial authority. He recognized the format instantly. Everyone did. A directive like that didn't ask questions. It erased margins. By the time he reached the command corridor, armed sentinels were already positioned outside the chamber. Not her guard. Imperial observers. Their presence alone told him everything he needed to know. She was being watched. Inside, Valera stood rigid at the center of the room, hands clasped behind her back once more. But the stillness was different now. Tighter. Defensive. 2 figures faced her across the projection table. Tall. Encased in ceremonial black and silver. Their insignia marked them as overseers, judicial agents of the Imperium, empowered to intervene when commanders were deemed compromised. Ethan stopped just short of the threshold. One of them turned. "Human," the overseer said, "you will remain where you are." Valera did not look at Ethan. That scared him more than if she had. "The convergence anomaly has been flagged," the second overseer continued. "Your station shows repeated probability distortions localized around this individual." Ethan felt the air tighten. "I assume you're talking about me," he said calmly. Valera's jaw flexed. "You were not authorized to involve him," the first overseer said to her. "Yet you summoned him repeatedly. Restricted chambers, unrecorded sessions." He is under my jurisdiction, Valera replied. Her voice was steady, but only just. As a liaison specialist. A convenient designation, the overseer said, given your history. That word hung between them, history. Ethan took a step forward despite himself. If this is about me, then talk to me. Both overseers ignored him. The Imperium has reviewed archived combat records, one said, including those from the destroyed system you previously commanded. Valera's eyes finally flicked toward Ethan, just for a second, enough to warn him. There exists, the overseer continued, a statistically impossible overlap between the deceased human operative from that conflict and this living one. Coincidence, Ethan said flatly. No, the overseer replied. Pattern. Valera exhaled slowly. You are suggesting a recursive echo, she said. That violates imperial causality law. Which is precisely why we are here, the overseer said, to resolve it. Ethan's stomach dropped. Resolve how? The overseer turned to him at last. You will be removed from the station. Valera's head snapped up. No, she said. The word was sharp, immediate. The decision is not yours, the overseer replied. The human will be transferred to a null probability facility. Observation only, no further interaction. Ethan looked at Valera. For the first time since they met, he saw fear on her face. Not for herself, for him. You cannot isolate him, she said. You don't understand what that could. We understand exactly, the overseer cut in. You do not. Ethan stepped forward again. Commander Valera. She turned toward him fully now, and in her eyes the war finally surfaced. This is not happening, she said, not to him, but to the universe itself. You are emotionally compromised, the overseer said calmly, as expected. Something in Valera shifted, not visibly, not dramatically, but Ethan felt it like pressure dropping before a storm. You are dismissed, she said. The overseers paused. That is not within your. I am still the acting commander of this station, Valera said, her voice low and lethal. And until formal removal, my authority stands. Silence. Then reluctantly the overseers withdrew far enough to observe but no longer dictating. Valera turned to Ethan. You need to leave, she said quietly. Now. I'm not running, he replied. This is not bravery, she snapped. This is survival. He stepped closer, not without understanding why they're afraid of me. Her eyes searched his face, desperate now, stripped of command. Because, she said softly, in the other life you changed me. Ethan froze. You refused to leave, she continued. Not because of orders, not because of duty, but because you believed my command was wrong. I don't even know you, he said. You knew me, she replied, better than anyone. Her voice trembled. And if the Imperium allows this echo to continue, they lose control. Ethan absorbed that, then nodded slowly. Then maybe, he said, that's exactly why I'm here. For a moment she looked like she might break. Instead, she straightened, decision hardening into resolve. Very well, Valera said. She turned back toward the command console and began issuing rapid directives, security overrides, signal dampening, internal reroutes. What are you doing? Ethan asked. She didn't look at him. I am making a choice I did not make last time, she said. The lights dimmed. External channels went silent. And somewhere deep within the station, protocols began to fail quietly, deliberately. Valera finally faced him again. This time, she said, I will not order you to retreat. The meaning hit him all at once. And for the first time, Ethan understood the full weight of what she was risking. Not just her command. Her allegiance, her future, her empire. The station was too quiet. Ethan noticed it the moment he stepped onto the observation ring. No distant machinery resonance. No low-level comm chatter bleeding through the walls. Even the stars outside the transparent arc seemed dimmer, as if the universe itself had lowered its voice. This was not coincidence. He stopped walking. His console pulsed once against his wrist. Priority access granted. Command authority, VALIRA. Before he could question it, the floor lights shifted, guiding him toward a sealed chamber at the far end of the ring. one that had not existed on any of the station schematics he'd been given. The door opened without a sound. Valera stood inside, not in uniform, not armored. She wore ceremonial black, unadorned, sleeveless, the fabric marked only by a thin line of silver threading at the collar. No insignia, no rank, just her. "You shouldn't be here," Ethan said quietly. Her eyes lifted to meet his. "Neither should you," she replied, "which makes this appropriate." The chamber was circular, smaller than command, its walls layered with inactive glyphs, ancient, dormant. A place built for decisions that were never meant to be recorded. "The council has convened," she continued. "They've identified the convergence." Ethan's jaw tightened. "Me?" "Yes. What do they want?" Valera took a slow breath. "To collapse it." The word landed heavy. "You're talking about erasing a probability thread," Ethan said. "That's not just theoretical, that's execution," she finished. "From their perspective." He stepped closer. "And from yours?" Her gaze wavered. For the first time since he'd met her, she did not answer immediately. "That depends," she said carefully, "on whether you are the echo or the divergence." Ethan studied her face, the tension she held in her shoulders, the restraint cracking under weight that had nothing to do with duty. "You already know," he said. "I suspect," she replied. "Knowing requires choice." She activated the chamber. The glyphs along the walls ignited, pale silver light filling the space. The air thickened, not physically but perceptually. Ethan felt it immediately, like standing at the edge of a thought that refused to finish forming. "This chamber predates the Empire," Valera said. "It was built to observe outcomes that frightened our ancestors." "Let me guess," Ethan said. "Love was involved." Her lips pressed together. "Attachment," she said. "The belief that one life could outweigh the stability of many." "And you don't believe that?" he asked. She looked at him. "I was trained not to." The light intensified. Images began to surface in the air, overlapping realities, branching moments. Ethan recognized the battlefield again. The explosion, the human who died in her universe. Then something new, a version where the man lived. A version where Valera disobeyed her own order. A version where she stepped into the fire with him, the Empire burning in the distance. Ethan's breath caught. "And what happens there?" he asked. Valera's voice was barely above a whisper. "The Empire survives," she said, "but it changes." "Because of him?" Ethan asked. "Because of me," she corrected. The images shifted again. This time Ethan saw himself, standing where the other man had stood, making the same choices but not all of them, turning back when the echo had not, reaching for her hand, surviving. The chamber shuddered. Alarms did not sound. This was quieter than an alarm, more dangerous. "The council felt that," Valera said. "They will arrive soon." Ethan stepped forward, close enough now to feel the faint hum beneath her skin. "Then choose." Her eyes searched his face, not for similarity, not for memory, for truth. "If I choose you," she said, "I will be committing treason against inevitability itself." He nodded. "And if you do?" She closed her eyes. "I will lose you," she said, "in every universe." When she opened them again, the commander was gone. What remained was simply a woman who had already lived through one ending. "I won't watch it happen twice," Valera said. She reached out, not to command, not to control, to connect. The chamber's light surged, then collapsed inward. Somewhere in the station, systems began to fail. Not violently, selectively. Valera's hand closed around Ethan's, and for the first time since the convergence began, the universe hesitated. The chamber was silent when Ethan entered, not the controlled silence of command decks or the heavy quiet of decision rooms, but something deeper, personal, unguarded. Valera stood near the viewport, her back to him, the stars reflected across the smooth glass and the faint curve of her profile. She was not in uniform this time. No insignia, no symbols of rank, just her. "You should not be here," she said softly without turning. "I know," Ethan replied. "You always say that right before something important." That earned him a breath of a sound, not quite a laugh, but close enough to matter. She turned then slowly as if bracing herself for the sight of him. Her eyes met his, and for once there was no fracture beneath them, no strain, only resolve. "They have approved your transfer," she said. "A civilian reassignment, outer systems, quiet work. That sounds suspiciously like exile." "It is," she admitted, "the merciful kind." Ethan nodded. "So this is goodbye." Valera held his gaze for a long moment. "No," she said, "this is consequence." She stepped closer, stopping just short of him. The space between them felt deliberate, chosen. "In the other universe," she continued, voice steady, "I chose duty without hesitation. I told myself that loss was acceptable if the outcome was stable." Her hand lifted, not to touch him, but close enough that he felt the warmth of it. "I will not make that choice again." Ethan's breath caught. "What are you saying?" "I am saying," she replied, "that I have altered the official record." His eyes widened slightly. "Valera, you will leave this station as scheduled," she continued. "Your file will state compliance, no suspicion, no pursuit. And you," she lowered her hand. "I will remain," she said. "I will answer for the anomaly, I will bear the scrutiny." "That doesn't sound like mercy," Ethan said quietly. Her expression softened just enough. "It is," she said, "because this time the loss will not be yours." Silence settled between them again, but it was different now. Not heavy, not restrained, honest. Ethan took a step closer, closing the distance she had left intact. "I don't know what I'm supposed to say," he admitted. Valera studied him. "Then say nothing." She reached for him then, finally, and rested her palm against his chest. Right over his heart. The contact was brief, deliberate enough. "You are not him," she said softly, "and yet you mattered in the same way." Ethan covered her hand with his own. "And you're not just a memory I stumbled into." For a moment, just one, she allowed herself to lean into the contact. Then she stepped back. "You must go," she said. "I will," he replied, "but not because you told me to." Her eyes flickered, curious. "I'll go," he continued, "because I trust that this isn't the end." Valera held his gaze, something unreadable passing through her expression. "In all recorded timelines," she said, "trust was where things collapsed." "Then maybe this one needs something new," Ethan replied. The station alert chimed softly. "Departure window." He turned toward the exit, then paused. "Valera." "Yes." "If this universe echoes," he said, "maybe it's because it's asking you to listen." She did not answer, but as the doors closed behind him, she lifted her hand to the glass, resting it where his reflection had just been. For the first time in centuries, the future did not feel predetermined, and somewhere deep within the Imperial archives,